We playfully mocked his tiny thing during family dinner. His reaction shocked everyone at the table. You know what people say about playing with fire? Well, I'm in that situation now. I played with fire, and I got badly burnt, and I don't even know how to handle the aftermath because everything is literally ruined. Hello, Reddit. My name is Claire, and I'm 30 years old. I work as a personal assistant to my father-in-law. He's a politician and a big-time business tycoon. It had been through handling everything about business and a little about his personal affairs that I had met Cole, my husband, whom I've been married to for 5 years now. Well, except my marriage is about to, or already is, crashing, and I'm desperate to fix things, and that's why I'm here to ask for some sort of help. Please note that, for privacy reasons, all the names I'll be using will be fictional. As I wrote before, I've been married for 5 years now, and life has honestly never been any better. Cole is the most wonderful man you could ever ask or pray for, and he had such an amazing family. They are so close, and it's so obvious they love each other. Cole's dad would always say that his wealth didn't come from all the money he made, but from his wife and his 3 kids. They made other families envious of their bond, and it was what attracted me to their family at first. I didn't have that growing up. I mean, I loved growing up. Don't get me wrong. But I was raised by my aunt, who had her own family to tend to. I never knew my parents, and my aunt was always so shady whenever I asked questions about them. She only ever told me once that my parents had me when they were both very young and weren't ready for the responsibility that came with me. So I was literally put in my aunt's care throughout my childhood. My aunt is a very lovely person, believe me, and she was really amazing with me. She made sure I didn't feel like I wasn't part of the family because she would involve me in everything. Even her kids, who were much older than me, treated me like their baby sister and were always protective of me. At first, I never knew it wasn't my aunt who gave birth to me, and I even called her my mom and her husband my dad because they treated me like their own biological kids. But I had found out from my grandmother about my biological parents, so I just withdrew from them. My aunt tried so hard to make me feel like I was part of the family, but I never just wanted to feel that way. I started to even hate my aunt and her family because I started to believe that they were just pretending to like me. Although they never gave me reasons to think so, I just felt that way for some reason. I left home the first chance I got, and that was after high school. I got into university, and I made sure I had chosen a place very far from home so they couldn't visit as much as they would like. Though my uncle paid for my university fee, and he never stopped sending me an allowance until he found out I got a job, I never once visited home after I left. I wanted to put them behind me like a dirty little secret. I didn't want them involved in my life forever, and to keep feeling they had to pretend to love me. Until now that I write, I haven't, not once, been in contact with my family since I left home, and that was years ago. So yes, my husband, Cole, and I met when I started working for his father, and since we married, I've been treated like one in the family. Even though I still felt that they were pretending with me and only accepted me because of Cole. But now, whether or not they were pretending to love me, it's very obvious they hate me, and they're not afraid to show it because I did the most painful thing to their son and brother. Cole has reacted really badly to a bad joke that has now caused me my marriage and my entire existence. It had not been me alone, it had been all of us teasing him, but clearly, Cole had been angry before. No, let me rephrase that. He had been angry with me prior to dinner, and he had reacted in the most awful way possible. We playfully mocked his tiny thing during family dinner. His reaction shocked everyone at the table when he got up, almost knocking over his wine glass, which still had some wine in it, and had blatantly asked me right there, in front of his whole family, if it was because of his tiny thing that I thought it right to cheat on him. I had been so shocked that he even found out about it that I had stammered instead of outrightly denying the accusation. But then again, the strong look of determination and anger mixed with pain that he had in his eyes stopped me from even trying to defend myself. He knew. He wasn't contemplating or guessing whether it was true or not. He knew I was cheating on him, and he decided to reveal it right there in front of his family. He had even named the person I was cheating on, and his family didn't have to see any evidence before they believed him. They had angrily just thrown me out of their home and their lives. I've tried so hard, everything I can do, to apologize and beg Cole to take me back, but he made it absolutely clear that he wants nothing to do with me. That's why this is my last desperate attempt, and I hope you guys will realize just how desperate I am and actually help me. The whole thing about the affair had been true. But hold on before you judge me. Let me explain exactly what happened. Way before I met Cole, I had this guy that I dated right through university. His name is Sam. Sam was not a student at the time. He worked with a professor that taught us, and that was how I got to meet him. Sam was very brilliant, and I admired him when he talked about anything because of how much insight he had on things. We started dating a month after knowing each other, and because of school policies, we couldn't exactly be seen together, so I wouldn't be termed someone sleeping with a professor's assistant for marks, particularly because Sam was working under the professor who taught us. So we hid our relationship, and even my friends didn't know about my relationship with Sam until I broke things off with him. Because of how in love with Sam I was blinded to see what was obvious, and because I didn't particularly have anyone to seek relationship advice from, I overruled his misbehavior as just normal. Sam only ever talked to me like twice or thrice a week, and he only spoke to me when necessary. Within a month of actually being together, Sam had introduced me to his family as his girlfriend, so I thought we were really serious and happy. But Sam never had my time. He preferred to spend his time reading a book or being on his phone than actually talking to me. When I tried to do something romantic for us, he would just dismiss it and never appreciated my efforts. He only treated me right in front of his family whenever we went visiting. He would look at me like a man in love, hold my hand, and smile at me, and he would even kiss me in front of his family. So I started to like visiting his family because it meant I could at least have Sam's attention to myself. Until eventually Sam stopped our regular visits to his family, and he would lie and come up with different excuses using me whenever his family asked that we come around. He would either say I had the flu or I had some assignment with a deadline or something else to do. I'm sure his family started to feel like I wanted to separate them from him because his mother stopped calling me, and when I did call her, she would speak to me like some stranger she just met. I endured this because I loved Sam and wanted things to work between us, and it had been the final year of school that I actually realized that Sam had actually been cheating on me. The shocking thing was it wasn't even with a girl my age. It had been with a woman twice his age. He was using me to throw his family off the scent so that they wouldn't discover exactly what it was he was doing. I ended things with him, but before I did, I decided to get back at him. I pretended like I didn't know he was seeing the woman so he could feel relaxed and do what he usually did, sneak out and meet the woman in their favored hotel. I tracked them down, and I bribed one of the hotel attendants to lend me her uniform so I could serve them. They needed the assistance of an attendant, so I was able to enter their room and see them behave all lovingly. Sam had not realized it was me, perhaps because he was too engrossed in their stupid love. Or maybe it was because of the hat I wore to cover my hair and eyes. I pretended to leave the room after I had done what the woman asked for, and when I noticed that they were already in the act, I took a video of them, which I sent to his family. Sam had not been very happy with what I did, but he couldn't exactly confront me because it meant blowing away his cover to the school, so he had left me alone. I graduated, and I got the job with Cole's father's company. It was the best thing that happened to me aside from meeting Cole. I had been so lucky to have passed every stage of the interview because I had literally no experience because I was fresh out of school. When I got the call that I was selected, I was so happy, and I had started work almost immediately. The job of a personal assistant to Cole's father was very demanding, and I had almost quit when I got frustrated. The job was actually interesting and challenging because having to plan his already packed up schedule each day, traveling almost all the time, and having to be ahead of every problem with a solution at hand was quite intriguing, and I loved it. But so also was the tiredness and the impromptu traveling for meetings all over as the disadvantage of it all. And then there was the involvement with his personal life, like delivering flowers and gifts to the women in his world. Luckily, my boss was so in love with his wife and only ever asked me to deliver the packages to her and his only daughter. Imagine having to deliver flowers or gifts to 3 different women who were all mistresses of your boss and adding his wife to the list. It would be quite stressful to deal with. The reason I had changed my mind about quitting was when I saw Cole for the first time. He saw me first, and when I noticed him too, I remember what he was wearing that day, a plain black shirt and shorts. I had gone to deliver flowers to my boss's wife, and he had been the one who opened the door. I was on my phone, so I didn't look to see who opened the door, thinking it was the maid as usual. It was when I had asked where the boss's wife was and heard no response that I ended the call and turned. It was actually an attraction at first sight. I was very much attracted to Cole just after seeing him, and I certainly made no effort to hide how I felt about him. We barely spoke that day except to exchange greetings, and before we could even speak further, his mom had come down excited about her flowers, and then I was already being called back to the office, so we didn't get any chance again to talk. But Cole had showed up at his father's company the next day, surprising both his father and me. He said he just wanted to say hi to his father, but soon enough, after his dad got busy, Cole had come to me, and we finally talked to an extent. He got my number and promised to text me. I was so excited and happy. He texted me that evening when I got home. I just relaxed and sipped my drink while we texted back and forth until midnight, talking about literally everything. I was shocked I could chat that much, especially with a stranger, but I had, and I loved it. That was how Cole and I started texting and calling, and sometimes he'd occasionally show up at his father's company just to see me. We started dating a few weeks after knowing each other, but it was mostly behind his family's back. Not because Cole wanted to hide me or was ashamed of me, but because I was scared of being rejected by his family or the last situation I ended up with my ex. We were together for 3 months, and Cole kept disturbing me to let his family know because he hated sneaking around, and he wanted to show everyone that he was in love with me. I finally agreed that he could tell them when I was sure I wasn't being used again. Cole had been so excited, and he had actually invited me as his +1 to a family dinner. He had introduced me to his family as his girlfriend, and instead of the angry and stern looks I had expected, his father had laughed and said he always wondered why I had that look of wonder whenever his son was around. And then the frequent visits from his son also got him suspicious. His mom had laughed happily and kissed my 2 cheeks and welcomed me to the family. His siblings had done the same. No one treated me differently, and in fact, they had been so nice and kind to me. And I thought at first that it was all for the show, and that someday the parents were going to invite me over and threaten me with money and a severance package to leave their son alone. But that never happened. Well, until now. Only I don't even have the severance package, just the threats. We dated for only 5 months before Cole popped the question. I was so happy when he asked me to marry him. He had made it so memorable because he had proposed right in front of his family and their friends. I had not even expected a moment like that, so I was so shocked, and I even cried happy tears. The proposal was beautiful, but our wedding was even more amazing and beautiful. It had been a very small gathering with most people from Cole's side. I only had a few friends, so I invited them for the wedding. My family got the invite but didn't show up. I guess they were angry I cut them off over the years, but I wasn't even freaked by it because I had prayed they wouldn't show up. I guess it was painful to them that the only first real contact I made after so long was emailing them a wedding invite, not even going to visit them and drop it off for them. I gave myself away on my wedding day. I walked down the aisle alone, and for a moment I regretted not sorting things out with my family, but then again I shrugged it off. Cole's family hadn't minded that my family hadn't shown up for my wedding. Well, because I told them some truth and added bits of lies here and there. Soon after our wedding, we moved into a big house as a wedding gift from Cole's father and a car also for me to move around with. I still continued my job as a personal assistant. In fact, I insisted on still working for my father-in-law because of how much I hated sitting at home and doing almost nothing and then nearly everything. Like Cole's mom, she's a housewife, and she's quite pleased to remain at home and cook her husband's meals instead of working. I wanted to continue working because it had loads of benefits, and because Cole's father was hesitant to let me go because I was very good at my job. But he did employ another assistant to help me out, so the workload would reduce, and I could get to spend time with my husband as much as I wanted to. Our first 3 years of marriage were very peaceful, and we loved each other and always spent time together. We were the envy of our friends. They were always saying they wanted a love like ours because of how much Cole and I had grown to like each other. The problem started happening in our 4th year when Cole started talking about starting a family. I knew if I started to get pregnant, I wouldn't get the chance to work because if it was up to Cole's mom, I wouldn't even be working at all. If I got pregnant, she would definitely insist I stop working so I could take care of the baby, and I didn't want that to happen. So I kept refusing every one of Cole's attempts at any family talks. His mother made the situation worse by talking about how she wanted grandbabies every time we visited her. Although she didn't exactly nag me and tried to force me to get pregnant, she just kept talking about it. Soon, I started giving Cole attitude because of the same issues. I wanted him to stop bugging me about the pregnancy issue, and he eventually did when he realized that I was putting up an attitude because of it. Well, guess who became a family friend through one of Cole's siblings? Yeah, it was my ex, Sam. Apparently Cole's sister likes him, and she wants him close, and he was taking advantage of her feelings for him. I first saw Sam again after so many years when Cole's sister had introduced him to the family as her friend. Sam had pretended not to know me in the past, and he had even greeted me warmly. I was so shaky and scared. The problem is, despite how close Cole and I grew, I never told Cole about my relationship with Sam because I was embarrassed by it. I didn't want him to know I was that stupid around a guy, so it's one of the dirty secrets I never told Cole about. So Cole was really clueless about the tension between Sam and me throughout the evening. He even engaged in different conversations with him, and he was intrigued by Sam's knowledge and wouldn't stop speaking about it when we got home. I pretended not to be bothered by his presence, which was hard enough, but Cole talking about him nonstop was the height of it all. So I snapped at him, pretending to be tired and that he was disturbing my rest. Cole had apologized that night, and he hugged me to bed, but this time without any other words. I knew Cole got Sam's number that day, so I got it off his phone and then deleted it because I didn't want Cole having any contact with him. I called Sam and invited him out for lunch. Sam and I met up, and he had told me that he didn't know that I was married into that family, and that he was not going to reveal anything about us knowing each other to anyone. He apparently only wanted to exploit the poor girl for money and then leave when he wanted to. I couldn't exactly say anything to Cole's sister so that Sam wouldn't just expose me to the family, so I had kept mute about his plans to the family, especially Cole. I was only relieved he had no intention of exposing me to the family. It was months after the whole thing with Sam that I met James. In fact, 2 months after my meeting with Sam, Cole's sister found out he was cheating on her through a very coded resource, and she had ended things with him. Not that they were exactly dating, but you get the gist. So after I was finally relieved that I had nothing to worry about with Sam, I moved on with my life. As I wrote before, I met James. James was actually a family friend and apparently my husband's best friend years ago, before he just suddenly decided to move out of the country and far away where no one could reach him. He literally cut everyone off, and Cole had been hurt, and after trying for some years to reach him with no feedback, had given up. So he had just suddenly showed up at our doorstep asking to see Cole. Luckily, Cole had been home, and he had been so happy to see him. They hugged and laughed, and then, when they settled in, shared some past memories with me. I eventually left them and retired to bed, and Cole had joined me later. He asked me if his friend could stay over at our place for a while because he apparently lost everything in a cruel divorce. I had agreed to it because I didn't mind it, but maybe I shouldn't have. Because Cole's father decided to go on a month-long cruise holiday with his wife, and he had insisted that I take that 1 month as my leave, so I had no choice but to obey, and that meant I was at home all day long with nothing to do. I was bored, and so I started having conversations with James whenever Cole wasn't home. James wasn't half as intellectually sound as Cole or even Sam, and so our conversation just fleeted around nothing really. Well, most times he just flirted with me outrageously, and I enjoyed it shamefully, and things led to things, and before I knew it, James and I started having an affair. Well, before it all started, I guess I did encourage it by giving him attention, and the first time he attempted to kiss me, I had not shied away or angrily slapped him and reminded him of the evident fact that I was still married and he was in my marital home. I had not done all of that. I just let him kiss me, and I had just laughed, and then left the room before things escalated beyond what was necessary. The first time we had sex, had been more like a subconscious action. I didn't even know it was happening. I did know. I wasn't drunk or anything like that. I just found myself under him naked. And at first I thought it was going to be a one-time thing, but it occurred more times than I could count. I even told him that it couldn't happen again, but apparently James had not taken my words seriously because I was easily seduced the second time, the third time, and many other times. How I was able to lie and keep it away from Cole is what I do not know, because several times while we made out, Cole could walk in, and I would just make up some lies for our compromising positions, and because Cole trusted and loved me so much, he believed me. Even when I resumed back to work, we still continued, only this time, not as frequently as before. But I still made time to make out with James. The funny thing, now that I think about it, James wasn't all that in bed. He didn't exactly know how to please me, but for some reason, I just couldn't stop cheating on Cole. Don't get me wrong, I love Cole very much, in fact, and I never had any feelings for James, but I just couldn't stop. I just found myself falling into it repeatedly with James, and he didn't help matters by always trying to seduce me each time. Cole must have started suspecting me the day he saw me coming out of James's room in the wee hours of the day. That night before that morning, Cole had come back from work very exhausted, and I was feeling rather horny. He was too tired to sleep with me, so he had just apologized and made promises for the next day, and he had gone to bed without even eating or removing his clothes. I was left sexually frustrated, so when I saw to it that he was deeply asleep, I sneaked out of our room, and I had gone into the guest room where James stayed. He was, of course, eager to satisfy, and by the time we were done, I was exhausted, and I had just fallen asleep almost immediately in his arms. I woke up around 2 a.m, and I had realized where I was, so I started to leave, and I was closing his room's door when I saw Cole looking at me all confused. I was so scared, and somehow I managed to maintain my cool. I told him I lent James a book of mine, and he had not returned it yet, so I thought to take it and read it since I was feeling rather restless and couldn't fall asleep. Cole had not said anything about the matter, but I had to behave very cautiously around him, especially with James, so he wouldn't have any cause to suspect me again. But then, I did not know that Cole was actually on my heels, and he wanted to just see me ruined. Cole started to ask James when he was moving out, and I knew it had everything to do with what he saw that night, but I still doubted it. I convinced James to move out so I could earn my husband's trust back, and he had under the promise that we would meet as often as possible. So even after he moved, I still found a way of meeting with him. I thought if James moved, then Cole would stop suspecting me, and he did stop, but he became more quiet and reserved. I thought it had something to do with work, so I didn't bother asking. Cole's sister got engaged 3 days later, and her happy father had requested we have a family dinner to celebrate the joyous news. He picked a day and had me cancel all of his appointments for that day so we could get ready for dinner. I booked a whole restaurant for the evening so we could have our privacy. Cole's mom had suggested cooking for the family, but Cole's dad had insisted we eat out because he didn't want his wife stressing and then becoming too tired to do anything the next day. Cole and I, prepared for the dinner, but Cole had gotten an emergency work call that he had to attend to, so I had gone alone. I got there, and Cole's sister and her fiancé were already waiting for everyone. I greeted them and congratulated them, and then the others started arriving. Cole, however, didn't show up until an hour into dinner. He apologized for the delay and had wished his sister happiness before pouring himself a drink and then gulping it down. He looked angry, and I didn't know what was happening. The family were, however, jesting and reminiscing on old memories, which made everyone laugh. It was then Cole's mom had mentioned that Cole was actually very little growing up, and that she never expected that he would even be as tall as he was now. Apparently, he had been so small even at birth that his mom's water broke with him coming right after. She didn't even have to push or cry out of the pain of labor. She had even said that Cole's dad had always been worried, especially because of how small he was. He had been concerned about his male genital organ, whether it would be big since he was small, so he could satisfy his woman. Everyone burst out laughing, especially me, and I started joking that his male genital organ was quite small, but that I wasn't complaining. Everyone laughed again except Cole because he had dropped his spoon on the plate noisily, shocking everyone, and he had stood up, almost knocking his wine glass. You know how the rest went because I wrote that before. Now I'm practically homeless and have nowhere to go. I've been staying in a cheap motel because I have no money to rent an apartment, and Cole never wants to hear from me again. I've tried calling and begging, but he's not even listening to me at all. He ignores my calls and texts. The only response I've gotten from him ever since that dreadful night had been the divorce papers, which he already signed and were ready for me to sign. That's why you have to help me, guys. I want to hold on to this ridiculous hope that Cole could still forgive me, but how to get him to is what I do not know. I know I did horrible things, and I'll do anything to make amends right now. So please help me. What can I do? Update. Hello, Reddits. I never thought it possible that a person could exist and want nothing as badly as detaching themselves from their body, or having a stronger feeling of hatred for yourself, and it's so much that you cannot even stare at your reflection. Well, I'm in those positions right now. I cannot even begin to describe how disgusted and ashamed and disappointed I am at myself for everything I did, especially to Cole. Despite everything I did to my family, I still ended up getting lucky, and I got married to the most loving man whose family treated me like I was a prized possession. But I still ended up messing everything up. It's so sad it isn't the old days now. Perhaps a stoned-to-death judgment passed out on adulterers would be a better thing to go through than what my life is right now. I've never felt so empty in my entire life. I feel so empty, but yet the emptiness hurts so badly. My heart breaks into a million pieces each day and rearranges itself again, only to do the same thing over and over again. And I could have avoided all these pains. I could have avoided all of these tortures. It is me to blame. I cannot even blame the devil on this one because I literally created the choice to sin on my own. I do not even blame you guys for your hurtful and demeaning words. Cole deserves better. I'm glad he's getting divorced and getting away from you. You deserve to rot in the deepest and most painful part of hell. You're lucky he just left you and didn't ruin you. And many other comments that I cannot even write out here. You guys just make me feel much worse by the day with your backlashing comments. I came here, ridiculously I realize now, looking for some sort of help or advice to win back Cole, but all I ever got in return were insults and more insults. You guys have no idea how awful it makes me feel staring at your comments and being insulted so horribly. And the funniest thing is that it doesn't even hurt as much as losing Cole does. Now loneliness and pain are a result of my actions. They are consequences of my sin. I regret everything I did so badly. I wish I had not been so selfish and self-absorbed to the point of destruction. I should never have even welcomed the idea of having an affair with James, not to talk of enacting it and doing it so severally, hoping to get away with it each time. Well, there's no getting away with this one now. I'm stuck with my nemesis, and the cause of my nemesis forever, perhaps. The future feels promising in the opposite way. It feels like it's promising a lot of pain and heartache, and I'm honestly not looking forward to the rest of my life. To be honest, I'm not even looking forward to tomorrow. Not because I'm dying, but because the pain just never goes away. It hurts more and more, the last one less painful than the next. Update. Hello, Reddits. It's me again, and I promise this is my very last post here. Your comments aren't exactly encouraging to make me post again, but then again, this is the only place I get to express myself as everyone in my life has shut me out completely, and no one wants anything to do with me anymore. I mean, why would they? I did cause all of this on my own, and I sure cannot escape the consequences. Well, it's been 3 months, 5 days, and 10 hours. Yes, I've been counting. There's nothing better to do than to count. The usual 24 hours in a day that always wasn't enough whenever I got to spend time with Cole now drags the longest, and it feels like the clock just purposely sits on one number for hours on end before moving to the next. Funny how even the clock mocks me now. You know how people say time heals wounds, and that pain gets easier to deal with time? Well, that's a lie, and I'm living proof of that fact being a lie. I sure as hell ain't healing from this wound, but then again, I was the cause of the wound, and the pain, It never gets easier, but rather gets even more difficult to bear and deal with. It's so hard living this life. I've moved out of the motels because I cannot afford it anymore. I ran out of money, and I eventually got free accommodation. But that free accommodation, I paid for it in ways you cannot even understand. We were about 20 sleeping in the same room on the cold floor, and it gets so cold at night, and I have no warm blanket to ward off the cold. Eventually, I had to sell all my designers, which Cole let me leave with, luckily, to rent a small room at the cheapest price I could get. And all of these things have happened because I was too stupid to cherish the love I had all my life. First from my aunt's family and then from Cole's. But I threw everything away because I was just stupid. Maybe my parents should never have had me. They should have just gotten rid of me. And then I would never have been born or even become old enough to have done this much evil, especially to myself. My life is the perfect description of hell on earth. I feel so drained mentally, physically, and emotionally, and yet I feel so much. I feel like I could burst any time. I should never have taken for granted what I got on a platter of gold. I should have never thrown away Cole's love or taken advantage of it. I should have been a grateful wife, happy to even get the opportunity to live the life I once had. But now all hope is lost, and I'm just an empty, divorced, sad woman who has absolutely no hope for what is to come. P.S. Don't become like me. Thanks and goodbye.